Here it is. This is my bike. I've had it a few weeks now. I've been out on like half a dozen or so rides and it's snowing outside today, so this seemed like a pretty good opportunity to come and give you some kind of a ride review.
I love this bike so much, but here's a good example of the type of roads I really wanted this bike to excel at. So, narrow, bumpy, yeah, you get the idea. And when you're riding in a little pack of your club mates, those sort of things can really throw off your front wheel. And when you're tired, you don't want to think about that. I just wanted a nice stable bike. And look at this, that wind is coming off that sea and I can feel it interfering with my front wheel, but it's fine. This bike just cruises through it.
Now, I think this is a proper endurance road bike. Now, I say the word road because it is not a race bike, and endurance for me means big long days out in the country, putting the miles in, and I think this bike does that so well. Now, if you've been following the channel, we've actually done two other videos on this. One when Look first announced the 765 Optimum, and I got very excited about its more progressive geometry being almost exactly what it is I was looking for.
I'm just having a bit of a sanity check before I cut the steerer tube and comparing my two frames for the height, and I'm pretty happy with that. I've measured it, but it was always nice and interesting to sort of see them side by side, and actually the geometry is really similar. And I think maybe here you can just see what I'm talking about with the seat angles just being slightly steeper, but those head angles being almost identical.
And then we did another video when that frame arrived and I got to really get up close to all the intricate quality details.
It's a Saturday, everybody's gone home. Vicky's flying to Berlin, going to see a Lizzo concert. Like, what the hell? And I'm here with my new bike and all the parts I need now to actually build it. I've got some peace and quiet, just some time with my bike, my tools, my workshop, just to enjoy.
So what I mean by a proper endurance road bike, in my mind, I wanted something that was super stable in a straight line for cruising, no matter how tired I was. This bike just felt stable and confident at any point. And if I turn into the mountains, I wanted it to still be fun. Now, the best sort of an analogy I can give this, because endurance road bikes is such a massive scale, is if you imagine something like a Trek Domane, it's probably more like a BMW 8 Series on the autobahns, cruising in a straight line, super comfortable, heated seats, you know, you get the picture. On the other side of endurance, you might have something like a Canyon Endurace, which is probably more like a Le Mans hypercar, let's say, which requires an enormous amount of like skill and focus to really get the most out of a stiff race bike like that, even though built for endurance. I wanted something in between, something more like a GT car, a Grand Tourer, something that you could cruise through Europe on and then turn into the mountains and have a lot of fun on it, but you didn't need the skills of a racing driver to really get the most out of it.
Now, as much as I said, those short, steep rises aren't its strongest point. When you really put that power down to the pedals, what you don't feel is the bike swaying beneath you. Most of that lag really isn't the weight of those wheels, because the bike is plenty stiff enough to get that sort of power down. You know, you can really stamp on the pedals. And I think if I had a lighter, more nimble set of wheels, that'd make all the difference. But this is why I've got these wheels on, because every now and then you get this, and when you've got these beautiful smooth roads, you can start throwing some watts down and build that speed and have some fun.
Sort of straight line stability, this is exactly what I was looking for, because what's important to me is when I'm riding with the club or with my friends, we ride shoulder to shoulder on little country roads. And that means that quite often my front wheel is hitting little potholes and little bumps in the road and loads of debris that comes out of the hedgerows and all that sort of thing. And you know, you're squeezing in, trying to avoid cars that are coming towards you. And for me, no matter how tired I was, I just wanted that to feel super stable. And also it gets pretty windy here as well, and I wanted to run some really deep wheels, and having that ability, no matter how big the crosswinds, that it just felt super stable. I've got that in droves, and that is down to the chassis of this really, because what I really liked about this frame was that more progressive geometry, which means that on the front here, it's a slightly slacker angle than the seat post. So here we've got a 70.8 head angle, but a 74-degree seat angle, which means the seat angle is still quite upright, which means it gives me that sort of good, powerful, efficient pedaling feel. But the front wheel is probably more like a time trial bike, a cross bike, or a mountain bike, and you have that lovely, stable front wheel. Now there are some compromises, I'll come to that in a second, but this is just exactly what I was looking for. Straight line, in a group, brilliant. Get into the mountains and you start doing your descents, again, that front wheel just gives you all the confidence. If you're going at speed and you suddenly hit like a really chossed up bit of road, you've got this, the bike just handles it. That is in part down to the wheels as well. We've chosen to go for the fast forward Ryot 55s. These are quite deep, and we've hooked them up with a Pirelli P-Zero and a 30mm, running those at around 68 psi. So a lot of that confident handling also comes from those wheels. But because of that nice slack head angle, it gave me the confidence to go for something deep. Now I've been riding this like down Shap, which is a mountain just out of our shop here. And if you know the Lake District at all, you'll know that Shap Fell gets wind from all directions rushing across it. And it's a fairly steep and straight line. You can get some serious speed down there. And if you get hit by a side wind, it can feel really off-putting. This bike just handled it. It's got all the stability, all the confidence that I was really, really looking for. So I am over the moon about all of that. So we've got this lovely little note from Look to say sorry about not providing the little part, and here is that said part that we've been waiting for. And while it's been going on, I've got a couple of nice little gifts arrived. So Lee from Tyre Bike has dropped off some lovely titanium bolts, titanium stem hardware. That's what I'm talking about. Now the compromise is it definitely understeers. So if you throw it into a corner, you're definitely going to have to reduce your cornering speed a little bit. I knew that was going to be the case because anything with a slacker head angle needs that sort of slower entry speed into a corner, and it's a compromise I'm more than happy with. The other thing to look out for is if you continue to turn steeply, you kind of get a little snap of oversteer, which can be a bit unsettling. Again, it's something that you get used to. So personally, that was exactly the compromise I was prepared to take.
Now this is the sort of climb this bike really enjoys. It's 13%, sitting in pretty much the lowest gear I've got, riding at about my threshold. This is where it just feels so lovely and efficient. Like I can really push on the pedals, no wasted energy. Just feels like every pedal stroke is going into propelling the bike forwards. Can't say that about an awful lot of bikes actually.
Now on the climbs, this is an interesting one because the bike is quite light. It's a kilo frame, so it's not the lightest. Remember, it has mudguard mounts and everything else. It's not a high modulus frame, but I think a kilo for the frame is fantastic for an endurance bike. And built up like you see it is now, it comes in at around 8.1, I think. So the last time I weighed this is actually when I was pretty much ready to ride, and I had my Garmin mount and my pedals on, and you guys are really interested about how much it was actually going to weigh. Since then, I have to say I have upgraded the cranks to the new carbon ones as well, taking the pedals off. So if you really want a weight that you can compare to other things you will see, I reckon this 8.10 is probably a good comparison to anything you might see online. Take the bottle cages off there, 35 grams each, so we're almost at 8 kilograms. And again, I'm pretty happy with that. Weight was not the most important thing. If I wanted it to be lighter, I would not have chosen those wheels, and I would have chosen a significantly lighter cassette. But for endurance, I'm absolutely over the moon with that. I am pretty certain that if I knocked 200 grams off this to get it under 8 kilos, I would not notice the smallest amount of difference in the bike at all. Whereas if I change the wheels and change the tyres and stuff like that, I think it would affect the handling too much. So I'm really happy with how that comes out. Now, so that means on the climbs, on the nice steady away climbs, brilliant, handles exactly like you'd imagine. When you get to a steeper section, it definitely doesn't handle like a road, like a climbing bike. It hasn't got that little snap when you really stamp on the pedals on a really steep climb. It definitely lags.
This is the sort of thing this bike is terrible at. Short, sharp, steep. Not sure if you'll have to hold on to the camera as I do this. You get the idea. 600 watt push, not its strongest point.
A bit of that is down to the wheels because of all this weight in the rotation weight here. You definitely don't get that snappy acceleration. It's definitely not hyper-light bikes. It feels like you can just float up the hills. It's not that sort of bike at all. But once you've settled in and you're at that sort of seated climb, put in a bit of force through the pedals, you know, somewhere around your FTP, maybe slightly above, the bike definitely feels stiff and the angles are all right and it feels a very, very efficient climber. Looking down at the bottom bracket, you know, it's not swaying beneath you like some bikes do. It all feels very stiff, very efficient. And then you sort of go through a slightly dead area again when it gets quite steep and you're sort of like really leaning forward, sat on the rivet of the saddle, you know. It definitely has an element where it's sort of struggling. It feels like you're winding it up, which is a bit annoying, but I kind of knew that that was going to be the case because and again, it probably comes from the wheels more than it comes from the actual frame. And I say that because when you sort of get back into the high power situations, you know, when you're sprinting for a road sign and you've got some momentum and the wheels are spun up, I could easily put like 700-800 watts through this and it absolutely felt really, really snappy and a lot of fun. Now we're talking about the frame, is how did it all build up? Well, I have to say it went together an absolute dream because all those high quality bits that we showed you in the last video, like the brakes just went on, lined up perfectly, you know, the wheels just slot in, the axles go through perfectly, there's no fiddling around trying to get things lined up so you can screw the axles in, nothing like that at all. I think I mentioned there's like a little gap that would be nice if it wasn't there, and you guys quite rightly asked me to elaborate. The only downside with that gap is it's just somewhere for water to sit. And if you ride in the conditions that we ride in, it's just, you'll probably see someone around here with like little rusty like smears after a ride like that. It's just nice if there's not spaces for water. In terms of quality, no bother at all. Now, I like their internal cable routing setup that we've done here.
Buying one of these yourself and you're trying to do the internal routing, just remember to put these two top cap pieces through the cables before you put it through the frame, especially if you're running SRAM bits like I am. It almost caught me out and you can't get that little banjo fitting through the apertures in this part here.
I think this gives me enough room if I need to remove the stem and get in there and clean those bearings, then I can do that quite easily. I've got some space, but also have a nice smooth cable run as well. It's not really feel like it's gone through a really tight 90-degree bend and it's compromising the shifting. So I like that. The little spacer rings are split as you'd expect, but the two other bits, the bit that was missing in the previous video that Luke sent, thank you very much for sending that so quickly. It's not like you could just take the headset bearings out and just replace them easily. You're going to have to disconnect the brake still to do that. But I'm a mechanic, I'm okay with that. I much prefer the nice clean look of integrated cables, and I think this is a really neat solution where I've still got relatively easy access to bits I need without being, you know, absolutely crazy integrated. A couple of little things I did drill out the front mech hanger.
A lot of masking tape, a brand spanking new very sharp drill bit, and I'm not filming this. Well, that didn't go too badly. It was actually some of the hardest metal I've ever known, but just took my time, went slowly, and I think that's fairly clean.
I've got no intention of ever running this 2x, and it was slightly scary. Bodywork is definitely not a skill that I have, and I was definitely rushed because I just wanted to get out and ride it. It's okay, it looks all right. I probably could have done a better job of sanding the filler down before I painted it, but it's I'll probably come back to that, you know, maybe next winter. We'll see. Other things I did, I upgraded those cranks a little bit to drop some weight. There's just an opportunity came up to grab those, which is all good. Still running the Cannondale Save seat post, which I still think is one of the most compliant and comfortable seat posts, and the carbon rail. So a lot of the comfort is built into that area really, is the seat post. and the saddle, you know, so if there is any like inherent stiffness in the frame, it's more than compensated with those low pressures in the tyres and those elements there.
So the bottom bracket went in super easy. This is what a T47 internal looks like. See what I mean by you've got to have that really precise tool, because you do not have much of an edge here to work with.
T47 internal 85.5 millimeters onto a GXP crankset. It's quite a combination. I have to say that I think this is probably the threaded bottom bracket solution that needs to win the bottom bracket wars right now. I know that a few brands are coming out and putting BSA onto things. I personally, I'm not a massive fan of BSA if you want to run SRAM dub, which a lot of people do now because they've got some fantastic value power meters, and the SRAM electronic system I think is fantastic, but you compromise that when you need to run very, very sort of small bearings, and this, you don't have that compromise. PF30 is probably my preferred bottom bracket standard, but as we are well aware that manufacturers are really struggling to get those tolerances quite how they should be. So I do think that T47 internal is a very, very strong contender for the win for me. It looks really nice. I do think that is important because no one likes to look down on a sleek carbon race bike and see these little chunks of aluminium sticking out the side. I like the fact that it's all integrated and it looks lovely. And it definitely helps to run those significantly larger ball bearings. So yeah, I'm a fan. I'll let you know how it goes. I know I'm an early adopter on the internal T47, but early indications are pretty strong. Okay, I think that is all I have to say. As always, I'm sure you guys have loads and loads of questions and criticism, and just get it down in the comments. It's all good. I'm looking forward to reading them and seeing what you guys think. The frames are sold out now until September. I know a few of you have called us up and say, will you build me one? September is the best we can do at the moment. So yeah, it definitely looks like there's a few people out there on the same wavelength with me that are looking for a superbly stable and confident handling road bike, not for racing, but for those lovely long days out in the mountains. I hope this video was somewhat interesting and enjoyable, and I'm looking forward to reading your comments. All right, I'm going out for a ride. See you later.